There is this terrifying irony that sits right at the heart of almost every successful business.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like
Oh,
you spend years, maybe even decades, pouring your sweat and your late nights into this thing,
yeah.
taking on absolute maximum financial risk to build a company.
Right. Taking out loans, missing family dinners, all of it.
Exactly. You stress over payroll every month,
Yeah.
and you do all of that for one singular reason, right? To create long-term financial security for your family.
That's the dream. Yeah.
And here's the crazy part. Without the right legal architecture operating in the background, that exact same business can destroy your family's financial future overnight.
It is honestly the ultimate paradox of entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
I mean, you focus all your energy on building this incredible high-performance wealth-generating engine, right? But then you just leave the keys in the ignition and the doors wide open.
Literally.
We see people amass immense value on paper only to have it completely evaporate because they treated legal and structural planning as an afterthought.
So today, we're going on a deep dive into how and we're specifically looking at South African business owners and investors here, how you can legally bulletproof your wealth.
Yes.
We want to talk about protecting your partnerships and really securing your legacy. So we're going to break down the mechanics of buy and sell agreements, explore the massive advantages of structuring your assets through trusts, and draw on the frameworks of Lunk Kusterman.
Right, the South African trust consultant.
Exactly. She's an asset protection specialist
Yeah.
who basically spends her life untangling these exact problems.
Which is so needed. But, before we get into the heavy machinery of trusts and legal contracts and all that, I think it's important to frame our mindset for this deep dive.
Good idea.
Because this isn't about fear-mongering, right? Or like planning for the apocalypse. It is fundamentally about empowerment.
Empowering the business owner.
Exactly. We are going to look at how historically wealthy families have protected their estates for generations, and how literally any business owner can apply these exact same principles today. The whole goal is to manufacture certainty out of chaos.
I love that. Certainty out of chaos.
Yeah.
Well, let's start with the chaos that comes from the inside then.
The internal threat.
Yeah, because we often think the biggest threat to a business is, a competitor or a shifting economy or new regulations. But the most immediate danger is usually internal, the unplanned partnership.
Oh, it's so common.
Right. It is so easy to fall into the trap of thinking, well, my business partner and I are best friends. We've worked together for 10 years. We agree on everything. If something happens, we'll just figure it out.
Yeah, and that optimism is a beautiful thing when you're launching a startup, right? But it becomes a massive liability as the company matures.
How so?
Because you are assuming that the people making the decisions tomorrow will be the exact same people making them today, and life just doesn't work that way.
No, it really doesn't.
What happens if a partner suddenly passes away?
Yeah.
Or suffers a severe stroke and becomes permanently disabled?
Or personal stuff, right?
Exactly. What if they face personal bankruptcy or get dragged into a bitter, protracted divorce?
When those triggering events hit, all that friendly optimism just vanishes. Like, the sources give some really sobering examples. Take this scenario with two founders. Let's call them Thibault and Sifo.
Okay.
So they built a highly successful engineering consultancy over 15 years. They've got a staff of 40 people, and the business is valued at around 12 million rand.
That's a solid business.
Right. Then, completely out of nowhere, Thibault dies of a heart attack at 52. And they had no formal transition plan in place.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So by default, Thibault's widow inherits his 50% share of the company.
Which immediately creates a massive structural crisis. I mean, you now have a 50% shareholder who likely has no engineering background, right?
Right.
No relationship with the key clients, and probably no desire to suddenly start running a consultancy.
Exactly. And more importantly, she desperately needs cash.
Of course.
She has just lost her husband, who was her primary source of income. She needs liquidity to pay for the mortgage, school fees, just daily life.
Yeah, the bills don't stop.
But Sifo, the surviving partner, he needs all the capital to stay inside the business to keep operations running. He can't afford to just hand her 6 million rand in cash to buy out her half.
And the bank certainly won't lend to him because the business just lost half of its executive leadership. It's seen as a massive risk.
Exactly.
This is a perfect illustration of why these situations are so destructive. You have a clash of two fundamentally conflicting yet completely valid needs.
Yeah.
Thibault's widow needs immediate liquidity. Sifo needs operational continuity. And without a predetermined mechanism to satisfy both sides, those opposing needs just paralyze the company.
The business essentially bleeds out. They end up fighting for months in lawyers' offices. The clients notice the instability and start leaving.
The top engineers get nervous and update their resumes.
Exactly. And ultimately, CFO is forced to sell the 12 million rand business to a competitor at a distressed fire sale price of maybe 8 million just to end the nightmare.
That is heartbreaking.
It is. CFO loses his independence, the widow gets far less than her husband's life's work was actually worth, and two families whose lives were intertwined are left hating each other.
And, it isn't just death that triggers this kind of value destruction. Divorce can be equally catastrophic.
Oh, definitely.
There's another example from the sources, Willem and Johan. They have this thriving manufacturing business.
Okay, yeah.
But Willem gets married in community of property, which is very common in South Africa.
Right.
Fast forward, and the marriage ends in a really hostile divorce. Because of how they were married, his ex-wife is suddenly legally entitled to half of Willem's shares in the business, which is 25% of the total company.
That is a wild scenario to imagine. You're Johan, you're happily running a manufacturing plant, and suddenly your business partner's angry ex-wife is a 25% shareholder sitting across from you
Right.
at the boardroom table.
Demanding dividends, questioning your strategic decisions.
And according to the text, that exact situation led to their business completely closing its doors within 5 years.
It's tragic.
Starting a business with a partner without a plan for these triggers is it's like getting married without a prenup while simultaneously sharing a parachute.
That's a great way to put it.
If one person pulls the wrong cord, you both hit the ground.
It captures the dynamic perfectly. Your partner's personal disaster instantaneously becomes your commercial disaster. You just cannot insulate the business through goodwill alone.
So how do we install an automated system? How do we stop the plane from crashing or the parachute from failing?
Well, this brings us to the first critical safety net, which is the buy and sell agreement. In legal terms, it's a binding contract between the business owners that predetermines exactly what happens when these specific triggering events occur.
So it's written in advance.
Right. It mandates that upon death, disability, or even a severe deadlock, the affected owner or their estate must sell their shares, and the remaining owners must buy them at a predetermined valuation.
The key word there seems to be mandates. It completely removes the element of choice.
Exactly, which removes the emotion.
Right. You don't have to negotiate with a grieving widow or an angry ex-spouse because the decision was already made years ago when everyone was calm and rational.
Precisely. You are deciding how the corporate divorce will function while you are still happily married. And a massive component of that is agreeing on the valuation method long before you ever need to use it.
How does that work usually?
Well, you can agree on a fixed value that gets updated annually, or maybe a specific mathematical formula based on EBITDA, or even a mandate to bring in an independent auditor.
The valuation aspect is crucial, but what I find genuinely brilliant in the sources is how these agreements handle partner disputes. Like where neither person wants to leave, but they can no longer work together. The deadlock.
Ah, yes.
I was reading about this mechanism called the shotgun clause, or sometimes they call it the Russian roulette clause.
The shotgun clause is an absolute masterclass in legal game theory. It is designed to force absolute fairness in an inherently hostile situation.
It really is. Like, let's look at the example of Aisha and Fatima.
Okay.
They own a retail chain together, 50-50.
Okay.
And they hit a total deadlock. They despise each other. They can't agree on expansion, and the business is totally paralyzed.
A nightmare.
Right. So with the shotgun clause, Aisha can trigger the process by putting an offer on the table. She says, I will buy your 50% of the shares for 5 million rand.
Okay.
But here is the elegant catch. Fatima has a set window, say 60 days, to either accept that 5 million and walk away,
Or
she can flip the offer and legally force Aisha to sell to her for that exact same 5 million rand.
I love that. It fundamentally rewires the psychology of the negotiation.
Exactly.
Because if Aisha tries to be greedy and lowballs the offer saying, I'll buy your half for a measly 1 million, Fatima will simply turn it around and say, fantastic, at that bargain price, I'll buy you out for 1 million.
It's basically the I cut the cake, you pick the slice rule that parents use for kids,
Yes.
but applied to multi-million rand corporate governance. Because Aisha doesn't know whether she will end up being the buyer or the seller. She is mathematically forced to state the most honest, fair market price possible. nobody makes a low-ball offer
Yeah.
because it can immediately be weaponized against them.
It is entirely self-regulating. It resolves the deadlock quickly, forces a fair valuation, and completely bypasses the need for expensive external mediators or years of agonizing litigation in the high court.
Okay, so that covers the legal mechanics of forcing a sale.
Okay.
But I have a major practical question here.
Shoot.
Let's go back to the death of a partner, like Tabo and Sifo. The buy and sell agreement mandates that Sifo has to buy out Tabo's widow for 6 million rand.
Right.
That looks beautiful on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
But practically speaking, where does the surviving partner suddenly get millions of rand in liquid cash to execute the transaction?
That is the million-dollar question.
Literally, as in.
Yeah.
If Sifo doesn't have 6 million sitting in his checking account, isn't the entire agreement fundamentally useless?
You've hit the exact point of failure for many poorly advised businesses. An agreement to buy is completely meaningless without the dedicated funding to pay for it.
Yeah.
You cannot rely on bank loans or business cash flow in a moment of crisis. The most reliable and universally applied solution for death and disability triggers is dedicated insurance funding.
Oh, okay, so the business takes out life insurance policies on the founders.
Not exactly the business itself, but the partners. The most robust structure is what's called a cross-purchase arrangement.
How does that work?
Let's say you and I are partners. I take out a life insurance policy on your life, and I pay the premiums. You take out a life insurance policy on my life, and you pay the premiums.
Okay, got it.
If you pass away, the insurance company pays me a tax-free lump sum directly. I am then legally obligated by our buy and sell agreement to take that exact pile of cash and hand it to your grieving family in exchange for your shares.
Wow. That is incredible. So the widow gets immediate clean liquidity without having to negotiate.
Exactly.
And I get 100% of the business without going to a single cent of debt or draining the company's operating capital.
You have synthetically manufactured liquidity at the exact moment of maximum crisis.
That's brilliant.
It is. However, there is a massive hidden trapdoor here that catches a lot of growing companies. It's the growth gap.
The growth gap. Explain how that happens.
Well, imagine we set up our buy and sell agreement and our cross-purchase insurance 10 years ago. At the time, the business was worth 4 million rand. So we each took out 2 million in life insurance to cover the other person's half.
Makes sense.
But over the next decade, we work incredibly hard, we expand, and today the business is worth 12 million.
Oh, I see. But the insurance policies are still sitting at 2 million.
Exactly. If I die tomorrow, my half of the business is worth 6 million. The agreement mandates you must buy it, but the insurance only pays you 2 million.
Yikes.
You suddenly have a catastrophic 4 million rand gap that you are legally bound to fulfill. You are forced to take on massive personal debt or liquidate assets just to cover the shortfall.
Wow. So an annual review is crucial.
Non-negotiable. An outdated buy and sell agreement can sometimes be more dangerous than having no agreement at all.
Okay, so a properly funded buy and sell agreement acts as your internal shield.
Yeah.
It ensures the business survives the partner's personal disasters.
Right.
But what if the threat isn't coming from inside the partnership? What if the threat is external?
Pivoting to the outside.
Yeah. How does a business owner protect their personal family home, their investments, and their kids' education fund from a commercial disaster?
That requires us to look outward, yeah. South African entrepreneurs operate in a complex and sometimes, honestly, hostile environment. And unfortunately, many business owners unknowingly expose their entire personal net worth to their commercial activities.
Like holding everything in their own name.
Exactly. They hold their primary residences and investment portfolios in their personal names. They allow their active trading companies to own valuable machinery or commercial real estate. And worst of all, they sign personal sureties to secure business loans.
Which means they have essentially tied themselves to the train tracks.
Exactly right.
If the business derails, it takes everything with it. All it takes is one nasty lawsuit from a client, an unexpected economic downturn, or an aggressive liquidation from SARS, and the dominoes fall. Creditors don't just take the business, they take the house.
And this is exactly where the philosophy of someone like Lumka Starman becomes absolutely essential.
The trust consultant we mentioned earlier.
Yes. Her entire approach centers around constructing what she calls an asset protection fortress. And the golden rule of this architecture is complete separation.
Complete separation.
The mantra you have to internalize is this: your trust owns the assets. Your company carries the risk.
I love thinking about this visually. The best way to understand this separation is to think about how a submarine is built.
Oh, the submarine analogy, yeah.
Right. A well-designed submarine is divided into watertight compartments. If the sub hits a reef and the front compartment tears open and floods, the crew seals the heavy steel doors.
Right.
The flooded compartment is lost, sure, but the rest of the submarine stays completely dry, buoyancy is maintained, and you don't sink.
That is a highly accurate way to view asset protection. In this framework, your active trading business is that front compartment navigating the dangerous waters.
Because it's interacting with the market.
Exactly. It's taking on debt, signing leases, hiring employees, dealing with suppliers. It is inherently risky. If that compartment takes a hit, a massive lawsuit, or a devastating bad debt, that compartment might flood and sink.
Right.
But your personal wealth, the family home, the generational investments, they are sitting behind a sealed steel door in a completely separate, watertight compartment. The trust.
So the business can be totally liquidated,
Yeah,
but your family's wealth remains dry and legally untouchable.
precisely.
Let's really dig into the mechanics of that, though, because I think when a lot of people hear the word trust, they imagine it's an offshore tool used exclusively by billionaires on yachts.
Oh, absolutely. That's a huge misconception.
So what is a trust legally in the South African context, and how does it actually, hold a house?
It is much more accessible than people think, but the mechanics really matter. In South Africa, a trust isn't a company. It's a legal arrangement. You, as the founder, transfer the ownership of your assets to a group of trustees. Those trustees are legally bound by a contract, the trust deed, to manage and protect those assets for the ultimate benefit of the beneficiaries.
Which is usually you, your spouse, and your kids.
Exactly.
And there are two main categories you have to choose from, right? Living trusts and testamentary trusts.
Correct. A testamentary trust is written into your will. It only springs into existence after you die.
Okay.
It's a great tool for making sure minor children are provided for, but it does absolutely nothing to protect your assets while you are alive and running a business. For asset protection, you need an inter vivos trust, a living trust. You establish it now, and you move your growth assets into it while you are still alive.
But I want to push back on this a little because we have to talk about the taxation.
Hmm.
Our research shows that in South Africa, trust income is taxed at a flat rate of 45%.
Yes, it is.
And the effective capital gains tax rate sits at 36%. Those are aggressively high numbers compared to personal income tax brackets for most people. Why would any rational business owner volunteer to pay higher taxes just to use a trust?
It looks counterintuitive on the surface, I completely agree. But it is a calculated trade-off that wealthy families have understood for generations. You are looking at the math of taxation versus the math of preservation.
Explain that.
Well, if your assets are held in your personal name when you die, your estate is subject to estate duty, which runs between 20 and 25%.
Ouch.
Plus, you also have executor's fees, which can take another 3.5% of the gross value. And your assets are frozen for months, sometimes years, while the master of the high court winds up the estate.
That's a massive haircut on a lifetime of work.
Exactly. But here is the mechanism that changes everything. A trust does not die. Because the trust never dies, the assets inside the trust never trigger estate duty. They never trigger executor fees. There is no freezing of bank accounts. The wealth seamlessly continues to benefit your children and grandchildren.
Wow.
So yes, you might pay a higher flat tax rate on the income generated inside the trust during your life, but you are preserving the entire principal amount from being slashed by a quarter upon your death.
So you're paying a slightly higher toll on the road to ensure the vehicle actually reaches the destination. That makes total sense.
Exactly.
But what about control? I know business owners. They are control freaks by nature.
Oh, big time.
If I take my life's work, my property portfolio, my investments, and I legally transfer ownership to a trust, haven't I just surrendered control of my own money?
This is the paradox of asset protection. For a trust to be legally valid and for it to successfully shield you from creditors, there must be a verifiable separation of control. If a judge looks at your setup and sees that you treat the trust bank account exactly like your personal checking account, they will pierce the veil. They'll declare it an alter ego trust and let the creditors take everything.
Oh, wow.
This is why in South Africa, family trusts are required to have at least one independent trustee, someone with no relation to you who ensures the trust is run compliantly.
I'm not going to lie, having an independent outsider involved in my family's money sounds terrifying.
It feels daunting, sure, but you aren't abdicating power. You can still serve as a trustee yourself, working alongside the independent trustee. But more importantly, as the founder who created the trust, you write the rules of the game.
Right, the trust deed.
Yes, the trust deed is your customized instruction manual. You define exactly how the assets are managed, under what conditions income is distributed, and what the long-term goals are. You are swapping direct personal ownership for structural, legally binding security. You don't own the wealth anymore, but you control the entity that does.
Okay, the architecture is becoming incredibly clear. You need the buy and sell agreement internally to survive the loss of a partner.
Yeah.
You need the trust externally to build a watertight wall between your commercial risk and your family's future. But trying to wire all of this together sounds like an absolute nightmare.
It is, which brings us to the most dangerous pitfall of all, the DIY approach.
Yes,
Huh?
you cannot just download a free PDF off the internet for this.
Hmm.
When you combine trusts, wills, shareholder agreements, and buy and sell contracts, the complexity just multiplies.
Think about the misalignment that can happen. Imagine your personal will explicitly leaves all your business shares to your daughter,
Okay.
but your buy and sell agreement mandates that your business partner has the immediate right to buy those exact same shares upon your death.
Wait, so who wins? The daughter or the partner?
The lawyers win.
Oh, geez.
It creates an immediate explosive litigation scenario. The executor of the estate doesn't know which document holds legal supremacy. The grieving family is suddenly at war with the surviving business partner. The business freezes.
A complete disaster.
Trying to piece these documents together yourself is like trying to perform brain surgery with a butter knife. You might think you're saving money on legal fees, but you are setting a trap that will cost your family millions of rands to untangle.
Which is exactly why working with an expert guide is non-negotiable, and why the frameworks of someone like Lumka Sturman are so incredibly valuable.
Absolutely.
As a trust consultant, her entire mission is to be the antidote to this complex legal jargon. She focuses on small to medium South African business owners, helping them build this architecture the right way.
What stands out about her methodology is that it isn't just a transactional service, it's an educational process. She breaks asset protection down into logical, conceptual phases that any business owner can actually understand and follow.
Right. Like, she starts with what she calls a foundation audit, because before you can protect anything, you have to find out where the leaks are.
Exactly.
This phase is all about untangling the mess, looking at where your personal assets and your business liabilities are currently mixed up, and doing a comprehensive risk analysis. I think the sources said it's 25,970 Rand.
Which is a drop in the ocean compared to losing everything. And once you know the baseline, you move into the architectural phase. She calls it the asset protection blueprint.
Okay.
For 39,990 Rand, this isn't some off-the-shelf product. It's where a custom trust and company structure is mapped out specifically for your family dynamics and your business goals. It dictates exactly how assets should flow and how to stay perfectly compliant with SARS.
And crucially, she stresses that it doesn't end once the documents are signed. There is an annual maintenance phase. She does these fortress checkups for about 47,900 Rand a year.
Because as we discussed with the insurance growth gap, setting up a trust or a buy and sell agreement and just sticking it in a drawer for a decade is a recipe for disaster. The compliance has to be maintained.
It ensures holistic integration. Your trust, your active business, your personal will, your buy and sell agreement, they must all speak the exact same legal language at all times.
Exactly right.
For anyone listening who just realized their submarine doors are wide open, or that they're flying a plane with a partner but no transition plan, exploring these educational frameworks is the absolute best first step. You can look at how Lumka structures these solutions by visiting her website at www.lumkasturman.com.
It is incredibly informative just to understand the baseline of what world-class legal protection actually looks like.
It truly is the difference between blindly hoping your legacy survives and mathematically engineering a structure that ensures it does.
Perfectly said.
Let's bring this all together. Today, we've explored two vital, non-negotiable layers of protection for business owners.
The internal and the external.
Right. Layer one is your buy and sell agreement. That is your internal shield, ensuring that when your partnership faces a catastrophic transition, be it death, disability, or complete deadlock, the business doesn't bleed out and the families receive fair, funded compensation.
Yep.
And layer two is your trust. That is your asset protection fortress, the watertight compartment that separates the aggressive risks of entrepreneurship from the quiet security of your family's personal wealth.
It is about building a financial structure that outlasts you. But as we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final scenario to really mull over.
Let's hear it.
Take a second and think about the single most valuable asset you own right now. It might be your primary residence, it might be an investment account, or it could be the equity in the business you've poured your life into.
Got it.
Now imagine your business is hit with a devastating multi-million rand lawsuit tomorrow morning. The creditors are coming.
Scary thought.
Is that precious asset truly yours, locked behind a watertight steel door, or is it just sitting there, fully exposed, waiting to be taken? If you aren't 100% sure of the answer, it is time to start building your fortress.
The time to check the parachute is before you jump. Until next time, keep digging deep.